Welcome everyone to our 3:30 Words and Music session on Thursday, November 21st. We are so excited to have these 6 beautiful people here with us to share from, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Saudades. All right, I got it. Cool. Before we get rolling, my name is Megan. I'm the festival director. If you want to know more about Words and Music's mission and the organization that runs this festival, I will tell you all about that later, but I'm not going to eat up these beautiful people's time. All I will say is this: we love supporting local booksellers. We have 2 that we are supporting this festival. Out there is Tubby and Coo's Traveling Bookshop. Any panel that's happening during the festival, Candace at Tubby and Coo's will have those books, and all the panelists will be happy to sit in the lobby and sign for as long as you want them to sign books. And then you could walk next door to the oldest independently Black-owned bookstore in New Orleans, Community Book Center, and buy other different books. And to facilitate that, at every session we are giving out a $25 Community Book Center gift card to folks who've RSVP'd. That's why we ask you to RSVP on Eventbrite, so you can be entered into the drawing, and also so we know how many people to have. So the winner of our gift card this session is Virginia Morrison.
Hey!
Virginia's in the room?
Yes.
Whoever just squealed me, I will be, it's really bright up here and I can't see you, but I'm gonna come out those doors and I'll lurk in that door in just a minute. I'll give you your gift card. And now I'm gonna get out the way and turn it over to Amy Serrano. She's author of Saudades, Anthological Contemplations of Persons, Places, Identity, and Time, and is also an award-winning filmmaker, poet, fine arts photographer, and human rights activist, who I learned yesterday, when this festival was under the directorship of the Pirates Alley Faulkner Society, screened a film at one of the very first Words and Music. So welcome back. We're really glad to have you. I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Thank you. Yes, I moved to New Orleans 18 years ago, and I'm sad to say that as of tomorrow, I'm going to move away for 15 months, but my plan is to return. So when I first moved here, I had a film that I made on human trafficking and modern-day slavery that was screened at the festival, and now that I'm departing, we have this event today. So to start, I want to offer my deepest appreciation to Megan Holt and the entire team at the Words and Music Festival for creating such a vibrant space for artists and their works. Thank you also for including the book Saudade in the festival. I also wish to thank all of the 28 artists from 12 countries whose beautiful poems, short stories, song lyrics, multimedia art, fine art photography, and paintings are featured in the book Saudades. Today you'll be able to meet 6 of these artists, including myself. Their works will help you to understand the nuances and subtleties of this untranslatable word. Through the exploration of this gorgeous word, together we invite each of you to journey through the haunting and enduring landscapes of your pasts. In a moment, I'll tell you a little bit about the meaning of saudade, that's a singular form, and saudades, plural, but first, let me tell you about the inspiration for this book. I love words, and so I've studied 7 languages. My first language was from my place of birth. The second language was from the country I arrived in at the age of 2. By the age of 4, I was fully bilingual. By the time I finished high school, I added 2 more languages, French and German, and by the time I finished college, another 2, Italian and Russian. Then at the age of 33, I tried to teach myself a 7th, Sanskrit. So you see, I love words, and especially in other languages. Now, I first heard the word Saudades at the age of 7. This story is in the book, but I did not know what it meant then. I kept hearing it over the years, and it wasn't until the year 2019 that I heard it again, only this time, something took hold in me. And I did a deep dive into discovering its meaning, applications, and its appearance in everyday popular culture via music, films, books, fine art, and poems. I even researched it academically to discover where it may be found within the human spectrum of emotions. What I uncovered compelled me to write a book about it. Since I have a rich and diverse network of global artists, I reached out to others to see if they wanted to take the journey with me. I invited them to submit poems, art, song lyrics, photography, and short stories that were about one of the many aspects of this very gorgeous word. I then invited two friends, Diego Piros, my writing partner and co-founder of a Miami writers group that we started, The Naked Beach, and Didi Menendez, a well-known arts curator in Chicago, to help me pour through the submissions to see which fit within my vision for this book. At first, my thought was to focus on the feeling of saudade towards persons, places, and time, but upon receiving so many submissions by women who were feeling this emotion, but about some aspect of their identity, I knew a chapter on identity needed to be added, so I did. And in retrospect, I am so glad that I did, especially during these questionable times. Before reading an excerpt from the book, I wanted to point out a few things. In the book, one of the ways that I try to illustrate and share Saudades with you so that it's understandable into your everyday life is that each chapter contains applications of Saudade, as these may be found, here we go, in popular culture through song lyrics, poems, philosophers. So you'll get to see different aspects of Saudade and you'll say, okay, I know this, I know this. At the end of the book, there are also music playlists that you can scan via QR codes, and these are the playlists that I used when I'm writing each chapter. They inspired me. There's also further reading and listening. And then I want to ask that if you can, to stop and sign our guest book so we can keep you posted on future Saudades events. And something I want to invite each of you to do once you learn more about the word is to share your Saudades moment with us. Once you understand more about the word means, about what it means, then if you share it with us, we can use it, we can post it on our website, we can include it in further mailings, or even on social media, and we'd love to learn from you. Also, if you want us to keep it confidential, we will honor that too. Just a space for you to let go or embrace this beautiful word. I'll now read an excerpt from the book about the meaning of saudade. So this is from the first chapter, which is called Saudade. The untranslatable word saudade. Saudade, in English, is pronounced saudade, European Portuguese, saudade, Brazilian Portuguese, saudade, and Galician, saudade, plural form, saudades. The word for the emotion of saudade is derived from the Latin word for solitude or solitudo, which comes from solus, or to be alone. In English, saudade is often explained as a word impossible to translate, yet quantifiable as a state of feeling that encompasses a wholly relatable configuration of bittersweet emotions. These involve a distinct strain of profound melancholic yearnings that may be for a person, a place, an identity, or a time that has gone and that may never return. Saudade is also a word for a deep-seated longing about an idealized experience that has not yet happened and perhaps never will. In the same manner that one may have a sense of longing or yearning, a sense of saudade is something you have. Saudade is also an emotion that one feels, as in when the Portuguese or Brazilians say, eu sinto saudade, which means I feel saudade. Having or feeling saudade typically involves concurrently experiencing several of these emotional states. A profound sense of longing for a lost love or the homeland, a bittersweet nostalgia, a deep feeling of loss, a pervasive sense of missingness, a dynamic regret, a constant craving, a gaping hole within, an indelible mark left on us by something that once was something or someone, a transcendent emptiness, a mysterious incompleteness, a poignant sadness, an elusive wish, a singular absence, having the blues, an ardent wistfulness, a recurring state of emptiness or ache, a desperate yearning, an indolent dreaming, a mourning of lost things and experiences, grief for the absence of the beloved, a haunting desire. Another aspect of saudade lies in the bittersweet pleasure we feel when we dwell on someone that has been lost to us. The 17th century nobleman and Portuguese writer Francisco de Melo describes this form of saudade as a pleasure you suffer, an ailment you enjoy. but we needn't look too far to the past to understand this. In pop culture, it's what John Mellencamp refers to in the song, Hurt So Good. This bittersweet mode of saudade can also be found in the Melissa Etheridge song, Come to My Window, when she invites the subject of the song to come to her in order to ease a precious ache. It's also present in the song by Jack Saboretti, Sweet Hurt, or in Sweet Misery by Trey Burt, as well as in the David Gray song, Beautiful Agony. In other words, it's a pain that one derives a certain amount of pleasure from feeling. An example is when a person continuously listens to songs that are reminders of the beloved's absence, and though it hurts to remember and one may suffer, there is a mutual feeling of enjoyment surrounding the ardent pain that connects us to and accompanies the haunting memory. When it comes to relating to the dynamic of time, saudade is more identified with a pining for the past, as in a longing for something you once had that is now lost. Saudade is also associated with a yearning for the future, as in something or someone whose arrival is yearned for, or whose return is wistfully dreamed about. Wikipedia has this to say about saudade. It can be a rush of sadness coupled with paradoxical joy. The Australian musician and singer Nick Cave, whose 1990 album, The Good Son, he claims was inspired by having saudade, describes it this way. It's not nostalgia, but something sadder. 16th century Portuguese historian Duarte Núñez Leal defined saudade as a memory of something with a desire for it. 19th century Brazilian poet Olavo Bilac described the feeling of saudade as something that represents the presence of those who were absent. And for the 1976 song, Nancy Spain, Irish folk singer Christy Moore wrote these words, "No matter where I wander, I am still haunted by your name. Standing by the ocean wondering where you've gone and if you'll return again." The Portuguese also refer to saudade as the love that remains. And so instead of me telling you more about saudade, why don't we watch a 5-minute short film from some of the artists in the book who are going to share their perspectives of saudades with you.
La saudade es una emoción, no cabe duda. Y una emoción que hay que requiere, que pide elaboración, reflexión.
Saudades is a yearning for the past, a longing for something you had, something that is no longer there.
Saudade is the echo of a distant memory.
An all-encompassing, gentle memory that drifts and permeates into your body so that it becomes a knowing of something all along.
Estar lejos de mi padre y mi familia.
Saudades, to me, it captures the essence of what I've called instilled memories, things that I remember and I've experienced without having been there in person physically, through photographs, through stories, music, through food even, of Cuba, which I never experienced on my own, yet I remember it and I long for it in a way.
Es recrear una cosa, es vivirla de nuevo, eso puede corregir un estado anodino, sin características del presente, puede corregir el presente, ponerte a pensar sobre el pasado, lo corriges el presente. Y obligas al presente a entonarse un poco en aquello.
Saudades is a delicate, complex feeling of longing, of hoping for a second chance.
Saudade is longing for one fleeting moment
The Saudade of my heart may be far away in miles.
I have a secret Saudade in a remote corner of my home.
I hung my parents' photo to reign over our family. Here I have gathered family works of their hands and minds and hearts. But here, all the years are melded together and chronological constraints are loosened. This is my Saudade, a place out of time, out of the world's frenetic tempo, a place of peace.
It's about moss.
Bittersweet memories of a special trip through Spain with a person who sadly is no longer part of your life.
Saudade is a relentless sorrow.
Saudade means to lament.
Saudades is the shadow of love that still exists.
Saudades is a yearning for the past, a longing for something you had, something that is no longer there.
Saudade is the love that remains.
At the end of the day, it's a sunset, a beautiful sunset that brings a yearning and a sigh.
So this piece was put together from video selfies that I asked some of the artists in the book to submit. And so that's how this comes together. We're going to get started on the section on persons. And the first poem in that section is actually one of mine. It's called Of Shelter and Rain. And we're going to go by section of the book. So Of Shelter and Rain. Outside it rains very hard, and earthbound water falls upon a defiant winter garden. Inside, it rains even harder, but I sail adrift on the idea of what hard rain falling awakens in me. Descending drumbeat elixir that through water, striking and luminescent, unlocks the portal possibility to a soul's desired reflection. So under this long-awaited flood, you finally appear. And through bittersweet shades of twilight, I venture beyond grand fortress windows and let you in. Over heavenly wet earth, we finally move, and like raw silk, I breathlessly yield to the thirst-quenching splendor of this one final surrender. The grand torrent rain suddenly stops, but with waterproof skin, drenched and filled in the warm, deepening afterglow of you, it dawns on me that if only under the spell of this rain-induced reverie, together we might be sheltered.
Well, speaking of Saudade, I grew up in this neighborhood, Bayou Road and Columbus Street, and 70 years ago I made my first communion in this place. So I don't know what could be more Saudade than that. And it just so happens I'm standing here now. Thank you, Jesus. This is a brief short story. It's a gay coming-of-age story that mostly takes place in Argentina during what was called the Guerra Sucia, the dirty war begun by Jorge Videla in 1976 in which 30,000 young people, student protesters, were by Argentine novelist who I knew very well in Spain and in Holland, named Raul Rossetti. Julio's face. Che, if you go with that type even once, Julio told me, you always will. With a slick pompadour and a paunch cinched into tight black pants, the American stood watching me. Julio steered me into a shop doorway to explain what this old queen wanted. But I already knew. Julio had made it with almost every girl I knew at the university. Few could resist his sleepy green eyes, fawn-like face, and mane of chestnut curl. To tell you the truth, I wasn't interested in those girls, but in Julio, although I could never bring myself to tell him. I'd been fresh out of a suburban military school when I met Julio at the university in Buenos Aires. My classes were okay, but he was the one who taught me everything. We stayed up nights reading Nietzsche and Marx, literature and philosophy, quoting the magnificent words to each other through the hazy drifts of smoke. Later, I'd ride behind him on his motorbike, arm wrapped around his waist, as if frightened by the bursts of speed, feeling as close to him as I ever had to another human being. I knew, of course, that he wasn't interested in me in that way. But I was happy just to be with him, as if I were his younger country cousin. Throughout this, I admitted I was a virgin, and I had to do something about it quick. The wan smile of that old queen beckoned me to satisfy, on some basic level, the mix of passions I was feeling. Despite what Julio said, I didn't think I'd always go with people like that because of one encounter. So I left Julio puzzled in the doorway and walked over to the man smiling at me. Do you have a cigarette? I asked, locking eyes. He didn't smoke, but did offer to light the one in my pocket. After that, I began to spend most evenings in downtown street corners, around certain men's rooms and movie balconies where people like me loitered. I saw Julio around the philosophy department or at the Café Central, where we hung out with our student friends. But we drifted apart into equally secret lives. Sometimes our eyes would meet across a classroom with a cafe with a jolt of recognition. I eventually went to live in Amsterdam because I wanted a more open life, one that wasn't a constant lie. Julio married a compañera from La Lucha, the underground resistance to the dictator Videla's Guerra Sucia, or Dirty War, and we lost touch. We both were spending our time in, how shall I put it, clandestine meetings. The only reason I ever came back to Buenos Aires was to visit my mother. One time I found Julio when we met. He asked me to keep a bundle of leaflets at my mother's house until he needed them to hand out at a demonstration. I hid them inside the pantry in a potato sack, even though I knew the whole house would be searched if the police stopped me on the street for any reason. The night before I left, I brought him the potato sack and we got drunk at the Café Central. We heard above the din of booming voices and clanking dishes. We leaned across the table, faces almost touching. Truth is, the most important thing that ever happened to me was you, I told him. The only man I ever really loved. I was flying back to Amsterdam the next day. What did I have to lose? There's one important thing in life, he slurred, pounding the table, is to put your ideas into practice. I wanted to live my ideas too, I said, but loving you wasn't one of my ideas. It wouldn't save the world or hurt anybody. It wasn't right or wrong. It just happened. Then what he said amazed me. Look, all those nights we stayed up talking, he said with a faraway smile. I wanted so bad for you to touch me, but you never did. And I couldn't face the part of myself that would make the first move. My feet found his under the table, but he kicked them away. Too late now, he said. For me, the resistance is everything. I don't have time to fool around. When we parted, our hug lasted longer than usual. Then he walked out into the Avenida Defensa, the potato sack filled with leaflets tucked under his arm. And I never saw him again. On my last visit to Buenos Aires, I learned that one night he was carried away by 3 secret police agents. Along with thousands like him, he had disappeared to the labyrinth of jails, concentration camps, torture chambers, and mass graves. It had been 7 years since his disappearance. His mother told me she used to show up every Sunday at the Plaza de Mayo, holding a placard with his photo, and even she admitted that by now he must be dead. I often think of him, and once in a bathhouse near the Damstraat in Holland, I saw someone from the back who looked just like him. It wasn't, of course. But that was when my reoccurring dream began. In the dream, I'm moving through a sauna, past rack after rack of naked men, sweating and staring through the shadow. I'm looking for Julio's face, thinking that if I find him, I could leave here and never come back. The sauna turns into a moor, the tagged corpses laid in endless rows, in a maze of murky corridors where I walk in circles, a white towel around my waist, looking for Julio. I have the feeling that I'm about to find him, and when I touch him, he'll jump alive, and we'll escape this place forever. When I wake up from this dream, usually after an afternoon siesta, I'm driven out to the street, to any bar or prison spot where I can stare at each passing face. I go into a trance. Men with blank eyes circulate like the blades of a fan, slowly drawing me into a vortex. Numbed, I pinch myself, have a drink, and talk to the nearest stranger trying to say anything to me. I usually do meet somebody, but never remember his face. The dirty war is over and people have stopped disappearing in Argentina, but now among my friends here in Amsterdam, you never know. You see them in the street, and maybe they don't look so well. Skeletal spots with purple lesions from AIDS. And the next month, they're gone. I hear it's worse in New York and San Francisco, but this new death is too much like the old one for me. Finally, we know what happened to the disappeared in Buenos Aires. That soldiers threw them naked from airplanes, drugged but alive, into the middle of the Rio Plata, tied up inside of weighted potato sacks. How long do we have to wait for this new dying to end? I suppose there are many ways to die. Careless love, interrogation rooms. It breaks us for good and tosses us back into the heat. Anonymous as dogs. The faceless masses we fight for. The faceless bodies we lust after. And the faceless corpses we become. If you're allowed to pick one face in your life for love, that's enough. Don't get me wrong. I never regretted my life as honest and real as any other. Sometimes, standing on a street corner, trying not to show my age, while I studied the faces of 2 young guys reflected in a shop window, I wonder which death is worse. And then I see them watching me, whispering to each other. I know what they're saying, and who I've become. Not often, but every once in a while, one of them returns my smile. asked me for a light, fumbling in his pocket for a cigarette. And we walked home together into what is left of the night.
Adamo, what she does with this event, this organization in my and to thank Amy for her work and for including this generous selection from my long poem. I'm going to read a few excerpts from these excerpts. The title of this particular excerpt is "You Who Never Arrived," which is a line from Rilke. Too fond, lost, without a plan, called to live elsewhere, higher, more, me, anyway. The one bound to earth with 10,000 and some years, without hope of parole, distraught, yet not. I will illness rest, sadness too, while the music plays, until the music is played. There is the bending of the two tame tigers to consider, rituals of nonchalance, the killing instinct, moot, through starfall, uprootedly. I drank the summer ale from the bottom of my heart. It is not yet spring here, is another way. Miry reflections, ungoverned and autonomous, a blossom of fire. We speak now of the circles included in circles. Your hair is brackish with concentration. Burns me as though I were not hidden. In another country, could I locate your hand, my own, without the lights of heaven bearing down? At Subiaco, on a cold day, under the Arkansas sun, who said this prayer? Beloved daughter, archipelago, elixir of honey, sweetness without form, holy hope, where there is no standing, mine eyes fail while I wait for my God, sperum facere. I point to the place where the words came out, prismatic blade, in our own grove of mishearing, the use to which the Aztec put obsidian, the young earth's sharpest point, eye colored. The cat dying, that was a warning. Thank you for telling me. Two lights on the library steps blinking out together, that too, plus your way was darker. And one from sleep, which I cannot remember. I said in those days it seemed possible not to come back. I said, how old are you? Meaning the her that had always been her. She referred me to the page on which the old bones were found, an act or instance of rending, lying about before time. The sun again and again, it was leaving us. The cat, no, I said, I was familiar with that. What were you doing? It is hard to remember. Known as a child to be excitable and disobedient. It is as hard to remember as to remember. She walked in the night, no doubt, cloaked in a child's drama. She walked because no still place could hold her, no word blinded her. I picture the moon penetrating the redwood tree, the cloak light upon her feet light upon time as the cat's feet. Confusion of smoke in the night, but distant. A faint stain in the nostrils, guiding and being guided. A woman in the dark with a cat and a knife, soul sick, her stitch upon her lightning. At that time, all of the earth was obsidian. Her feet left a bloody trail, footfall, memory, or no one could follow, who had not been me. She walked inside the savings of her heart, nothing, carefully salted at the core. She walked until the stars relented and the cat asked for the shelter of death. The indescribable circle kept the distance behind her. She was used to walking in the bird's requiem. First light, you think, just over the mountain, cataclysm, bells, fire failed from the sky, herself the hyacinth, cento, the rags upon her burning, no voice calling to her that was not shrill wind miscarried. I yearn for the dark that would not separate us and not be the dark of the sepulchre. But your photographs show anger, violence, pain, disguised as games. Did my hand tremble? My eye turned down, could not help it, and I don't know how my poor throat sounded, even set off against the angel's bells. Who did I mourn for then, seeing your flesh as it will be seen 100 years from 100 years from now? Myself or you? The water of doctrine commands the soul to ground. We talk at last of love, chemical wedding, the form of devouring, red sulfur, white sulfur, sacral acts in the glass house. I bid her sweet Alyssum in billowing scented mounds, a canopy of lemon verbena, and dressings of amaranths, sassafras, with wild plum to embitter. How odd your voice would sound anywhere, like the lever or the capstan, or a perfect number acquired. Say I am the king of China, old beyond his years, who was surprised when a girl, having the body and form of a serpent, she seems to him still a girl, walks right up to him and says, Arbor pomo deret, abor ego, lumino gesto. Though how the serpent learned a yet unborn language is anybody's guess. We might as well think Orpheus lifts his head from the cross and, freed from all responsibility to his voice, demands a smoke. Small system, bugs, cloud, attending me like flakes of sunlight, hiving to a hive of air. Above the place I open myself to light, as to an idea I will never comprehend, though it has done away with me harmlessly. I watch them, all motion in the blue air, but fail to know what depth I could come upon this green place from. I ache for all alike. I cannot keep a single hope from mad, scrambling, anti-lucidity. But I was no scientist of the soul, nor tenor with a voice of timeless air. Could not even keep myself in sympathy. Letting go is useless. One is let go. In virtue of virtues, one is free to hunt all passionate desire, harmony adjusting its own weight, like Francis of Assisi, his book upon which sparrows light, expressing as they step upon mystery the world's disinterested satisfaction in itself. However broken down the rhythm, unity distressed, but holy moment to moment. One is led to abstract the storm, to step in the simpler time of created song and unfreeze all tonalities, witness the body ending there in ecstasy and sorrow.
The next piece is one of my poems, but instead of reading you the poem from the book, since I'm primarily a filmmaker, I thought I would set it to a short film. So it's a 2-minute, 13-second short film, and the poem is called Like Fire. Can you dim the lights?
I want to be washed of fevered memories, the branding heat of your body against mine. The answers we forgot to tell to questions that were never asked. I want to be cleansed of this smoldering silence, a discordant party haunted by love, inconclusive. I want to be rained upon by love's diluvian moisture, to create tongue hieroglyphs upon the shadow of your memory. We fire once. Now, I just sink into this nothingness. Water, rush down on me, soak me with release, drown me in hope. Just let it rain hard.
This poem is called Shatan Nocturne for Those Who Left. And my Creole cousin, Amy Serrano, who also grew up in this neighborhood, she and I both moved to California for decades. I was in San Francisco, she was in Santa Cruz. Her mother was an artist. Her father developed Aunt Sally's collections. And we would get together occasionally and talk about New Orleans and realize that even though we were in California, we had never left New Orleans. So this is Shotgun Nocturne for those who left. Hands folded, you sit in communion white. Your presence is still courtyard. As I pace the deck, talking upon. Our memories merge when such substance. We're related by the Militon mark. Pale Californian pastels peel back, like buckled sheetrock after a flood. Inside the walls of an abandoned house, a Gulf breeze billowing filmy curtains. Footsteps on the gallery, a screen door slam, the furniture covered, stiff restraint. Faces frozen in the china cabinet glass. We're rummaging for something they forgot to give us, examining dust for prayers. At sundown, the old woman next door shouts in Cajun French to her family, all dead, winning the same old arguments again. 2 children remain on the swing set, weaving shadows of live oak into evening. When we left, they stayed. And the hands of the hall clock stuck as it struck that hour. Any minute, Mamere will be back for them. Slice a lemon in 2 and dip it in sugar. Street lamps go on, but they're obedient as the last sentinels of a lost country. And even though we stumble for decades through seasonless landscapes, they wait. The porch light is beckoning, alive with moths.
So this last poem by James was from the Places section. We're now going to start the Identity section with 3 pieces. First will be First Ladies by Brouwer, then A Single Light Bulb, a short story by Carroll Devine, and finally The Languages of Memory, a reflection by Marjorie Agosin, which I will read in her behalf.
Hello, I write narrative poetry, usually based on at least a germ of truth. Today I was struck during the introduction by a few words. One was indelible memories, and the other was yearning. I'd like to read the poem that is included in the Saudades book, First Ladies. First Ladies, married, 1963, divorced, 1976. We were the first ladies, Kay, Diana, Sharon, and I. Ladies first, through doors to be seated, into aisles of theater seats. We were always ladies, first and foremost and above all else. We'd been dutiful daughters and virgin brides, and became good wives and loving mothers. Yes, we were ladies first and foremost and above all else. We were the first ladies upon whom our husbands bestowed their names, the first ladies to whom they plighted their troths. A place of honor was given us. We knew our place, kept to it. We supported husbands earning degrees and, by degrees, their masculinity. Husbands who came and went with impunity. We stayed still, in ladylike passivity. In still nights, we stayed and waited, loosed our chignons, our French twists, and stopped, frozen in an earlier time. The world turned and skewed, and through curious eyes, we viewed askance political revolutions. Through amazed eyes, we read, titillated by a sexual revolution. With guilty consciences, we stood in line, signed the children into preschool. Minute cracks in our polished veneer let longings in. Let the Mrs. hook their fingers toward us. Let the Mrs. beguile us thus. They kept their own names, wrote their own vows, took their own vows. Looking back, are those our new sisters marching on DC? Is that us? Sitting still sitting, watching on TV? Yes. And then the husbands left. Yes. And then we fell into the abyss. Some to sink, some to swim, most to flounder, betrayed by our mother's voices, our sisters' visions, our own ambitions. Swept away, footloose, we lost our bearings, doubted our instincts. A toe touched a rock here, a hand reached for a branch there. We loosened the weights dragging us down, then grabbed them back to our maternal breasts. We emerged alive to find that women had put away their feminine touches, their pillbox hats, their white gloves, their recipe collections, had relegated their children to others' care, were pursuing degrees, careers, orgasms galore. Through it all, even as we threw off our fancy hats, drew on more appropriate gloves, entered into the no-holds-barred fray, it never felt right. Behind it all, under it all, we were still ladies who waited for their men to return. Thank you.
Who's to say which of our memories are real and which aren't? Single Light Bulb is a story from my young childhood, which both happened and didn't. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling socket above the linoleum floor. It was the only light in the kitchen in our house on Tupelo Street. But Mama danced under it, sometimes. For summer Friday lunches for her then 4 daughters, Mama stretched 1 can of tuna with hard-boiled eggs and mayonnaise into sandwiches for us all. and maybe one for herself, a price she paid for being a devoted Catholic and poor. Still, Mama danced, sometimes. Two sisters slept toe to toe in one twin bed, two in another, in a room with an old chiffro that held all our belongings. We didn't know then what it was we didn't have. Neither did our neighbors. A China ball tree dominating our tiny backyard was a source of simple delight. From its bounty, we collected balls in grocery bags and were thrilled to hear them pop when we stomped on them on the banquette. In the sunny spots near the house, Mama grew hydrangeas for their generous color, gardenias for their uplifting scent, and 4 o'clocks for us to string into necklaces. Sometimes as she dusted and cleaned, her voice, coming from a slight 5'2" frame, would fill the Creole cottage as she belted out her favorite Nat King Cole lyrics. The words seemed to give Mama's life buoyancy through the hard days. Smile, though your heart is aching, and as if to counsel herself, when there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by if you smile through your tears and sorrow. Smile, and maybe tomorrow the sun will come shining through. Mama's genuine smile bubbled up from deep within her soul. It even gave way to silliness as she made nonsense rhymes or tried to teach us her version of Pig Latin. Like Ma Jode in The Grapes of Wrath, she made laughter out of inadequate materials. Mama didn't sit much. There was no time. Yet in between floor sweeps, she would turn on the radio, put down her broom, and teach me dances, like the Charleston, as her mother had taught her. Daddy, a crackerjack mechanic, worked on cars by day and often brought some home to work on at night. He rebuilt transmissions in the small garage he had constructed almost single-handedly, wrapping the 2x4s in plywood walls with brick-looking tar paper. Daddy was so much at one with cars, my mother used to say he could stick his finger into the ignition of a dead car and make it go. On the other hand, to my mother's dismay, he was without an ambitious bone in his body, and too often with less affection than she needed. Your daddy never hugs me, my mother confided sadly to me one day. Yet sometimes at night, with impossibly grease-stained hands, Daddy would take her in his arms and dance with Mama to music on the radio under the single light bulb.
So the last piece on this section on identity is by my favorite living female poet from Chile. Her name is Marjorie Agusi. And it's a very brief reflection called The Languages of Memory. She always asked women travelers about their languages, their rhythms, cadences, the intonations of their songs, their riddles. She asked how they remembered beloved words, the language of women that will not belong to their daughters. She never heard her own language. They stole her name and cut into her history. That is why she asks foreign women how they feel their language, and she recognizes herself in each of them as if all such women belonged to her. Next, we go into the final section of the book, which is time, and I am going to read a poem by my favorite living male poet, Diego Quiros, who also happens to be my writing partner. And this poem is called Pedestals. We stood on pedestals, those splendid days when fire exploded inside our beings and eternal springs of soul flowed from our eyes. I floated on air, enchanted by the solitary splendor of your luminous flame. You watched me with the awe of a summer violet downwind the blazing woods. We knew no element was as flammable as a lover's breath, and rushed for air after every first kiss that awoke us from the invisible reality we could not foresee. I lost my heart, my breath, and my sleep to the dark arts of destiny that kidnap dreams into their deep abyss of night and shred them with the long, sharp nails of a French duchess. I still hear the echoes of those splendid days rebound from memory's facade, and the song of your siren's voice from across the earth's extent, whispering the last secret of Pandora's box. I still stand on my pedestal, bring a hand to my brow, and scan the horizon with side-to-side motion, looking for signs of fire lit by the reckless flame of a lover's breath.
The speaker in this poem is a photographer, and if you were to read it, you would see it's written in 4 snapshots. Between each snapshot, there's a line of stars. So I'm going to, for the passage of time, as we explore what's art, what's beauty, are they the same? Who gets to say what art is? Should we give a damn? Can we become more than ourselves? Can we become more than our art in the world in which we live? Isle of Man. You have made me very happy, he says. And I catch my breath. Husband of my heart, hand resting lightly on the doorknob. Always on the way out. Standing sideways with the light behind him, backlit for dramatic illustration, on purpose. I smile inwardly as I think, but do not say, ah, the actor in him is playing out. I am waiting. We are not yet married. It has taken us 5 years to get this far. We move at glacial speed. So far, unfold. My eyes scan, searching for my camera, to save this moment, to freeze him forever on film, to always see him as I see him now. A trade photographer, I am both blessed and cursed by the knowledge, fear, challenge, certainty. This moment will change before I can cup it in my hands, and so it does. Shifting light through my fingers, seaweed slipping back into the North Manx Sea. "10 years. A bluff of Dover marble, the museum of art, horizoned by exhibits. Photo is now art. I am number 27. My brightly lit, incisively sharp, hyper-color, technically perfect food shots float, flounder, floundering, lost, unnoticed among the under and overexposed currents of sepia and hazy black and white. Framed in the doorway, the golden hour streams in behind him. I do not expect him. For years now, I do not expect him. Against myself, feeling the fool, still, I feel he has come, sings within within me against all reason, against all knowledge. Amber beams flow from me, blessing the room, filling an ever-expanding sky. If he wants you, he will find you, and he has not. This every night's mantra, slain in this moment. He kisses me tenderly above the ear, glides a hand to my waist gently, whispers, "Good to see you." Inside I sing, then his first new wife. Something yellow and fluffy bounces over, tea to his beer. My new first husband coldly focuses on the hand. It drops from my waist. Cilantro, health, we toast, but it does not go well. Awkward and embarrassed, she buys my art cookbook, easily purchasing with plastic all that I love. I am ashamed, selling so easily to the enemy. The siren song abates. Rarefied judges bypass number 27. Quizzing the art of representation, adjudged too pedestrian, too non-conceptual to be art. My camera takes its place back in the kitchen, witnessing line cooks, frying bacon to bandage the legs of disabled frogs, frogs unable to swim in boiling oil, unable to hold center in currents by far, far too strong. "20 years. She is dead!" He weeps for his second wife. Continental drift. The iceberg drifts to me. First slowly, then furiously. I lift my camera, but the light reflects only blue, and once more slips away. I persevere, learning to walk steadily on the deck, finding my sea legs. This time, I will work and fight and rip the heavens apart. Open the sky, roll back the ocean. You have made me very happy, he says, and I catch my breath. The husband of my heart, my husband now, these past 7 years. To me still, the man most male of all humanity, removes his oxygen mask. You have always been very happy, he says, as he kisses me tenderly above the ear, and I, his third and final wife, am filled with the golden glow. Our gray falls away. Our wrinkles flatten across the earth. Together, we navigate the tides of time. In the eye of the universe, we are beautiful art.
final piece is also by Diego Quiroz, and it is called Blake, based on Auguries of Innocence by William Blake. So it starts with the most well-known 4 lines. To see a world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wildflower, to hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. At dawn, the clouds act like prisms, flickering hues of blood orange as beams slowly pierce their fragile ventricles. The sun frames its sphere in the square of my window, steadfast, unwavering, heralding the golden ratio in blinding symmetry. What must it feel like to be a billion stars on fire? Spiraled arms bestowing magic across the universe in molten swirls of gold. You and I once felt this power while facing each other. Eternity, like mirror on mirror, we seized a million light years in a fragment of time. Thank you.